Hi, my name is Bert Stephani. I'm a professional photographer from Belgium, and about a year and a half I reviewed this camera, the Fujifilm X100S. I liked it a lot and I bought one. It became my favorite documentary and street photography camera, and it's always been my always with me camera too. And now we have the new X100T, which comes with a couple of new improvements. They may not be dramatically new, but I'm very interested to see how this camera will hold up against the old X100S. So first impressions, as you can see, except for the change of letter between an S and a T, there's not too much difference on the front. It's slightly redesigned, but that's all. And the back is just the same. But just as well, because I think the original design of the original X100 was already near perfect, so there's no need to change a lot on this camera. There are, however, a couple of small improvements on the new X100T that I think that are worth mentioning. Apart from some styling features, one of the main things is that the aperture ring is now, you can set it in 1/3 of a stop increments, while in the old one it was only full stop increments and you had to change the 1/3 of a stop with the buttons on the back. So I think that's a valuable addition to have that 1/3 of a stop. On top of the camera, there's one important change, and that is that the exposure compensation dial now goes to +3 and -3 instead of the original -2, +2. And I think that's a very interesting addition to the camera, because sometimes you need more than just 2 stops. And I'm an aperture priority shooter mainly on this camera, so that really is a big help. The biggest changes are done on the back side of the camera. It may look pretty much the same apart from a slightly bigger screen, but the button placement is a bit different. And Fuji told me that they want to go for a more uniform button placement on the back of the cameras over their whole series of X-series cameras, which to me is a very good thing, because it used to be a bit all over the place. The users of the old X100 or the X100S will notice that the stupid little turning ring is gone now, and we have a classic D-pad, which is actually much easier to use than this rotating dial, in my humble opinion. And also a lot of these buttons are programmable, so you can set a function to these 4 buttons and some other buttons, a button on top here, so you can basically customize the camera to your needs. The X100, since the very first one, the original X100, has always been a very sexy camera, and it still is. And sometimes I think it might be even a bit too sexy for its own good, because it attracts attention. People want to talk to you about this beautiful, nice little camera. But in case you think it is too clear and too pretty, you can always get a black version of this camera. In case you're wondering what this is just a little GoPro camera on top of my X100T to give you an extra view on how I shoot and what I shoot. All right, so street photography is often very hard to get started with. It is a very slow and frustrating kind of photography. You have no control, you never know what you are going to get, if you are going to get anything at all. So my way of doing things is to just force myself to just get started and see what I can get. I often have a couple of keywords in my head that I will go for, that I look for. One of the things that I'm always interested in is elegance or a lack of elegance. So I'm very often looking for that. it can move me to find elegance in everyday life. So that's kind of what I'm looking for here. We have some really nice light going on here. Nice backlight and very strong lines from the steps here. So I'm basically waiting for someone to come by to finish the picture. So the picture is this with a bit of a geometrical, strong line things going on. And then I'm kind of waiting for the right person to come by. So ideally I would want someone really elegant or really unelegant to walk this way, pretty close to the lines, so I can make a nice graphically strong picture. So unfortunately this lady walked too far from it. It looks like this area is forbidden for elegant people, but we'll give it a couple more minutes and see if something comes up our way. So I think I just got lucky with one of the kids that are playing here to have a little action shot, good timing or a lot of luck. So I was looking for elegance, but I found something else. In street photography, it's very important to always keep your options open and be able to react pretty quick when something happens. So let's move on to another space and see if we can shoot anything else. So I got a pretty nice shot, a shot that I kind of like. And one of the really nice additions on the new X100T, and something that I was really waiting for, is that it has now Wi-Fi on board. So you can basically simply transmit the picture to your phone. And I love to do a lot of Instagram, and this has kind of always been my Instagram camera. But now it's much easier to get the image on your phone and get it on Instagram right away. So I'm gonna get my phone out, push the Wi-Fi button. So it's pretty easy to quickly transfer an image from the camera to your phone and then edit it on my phone and put it on Instagram. I'm using Snapseed to edit images on my phone before I get them on Instagram. It's not too much I do on these images, but just a little bit. So this is kind of my Bresson in Leuven picture that I'm going to put on Instagram. So it's just a couple of tweaks and then it's ready to go on Instagram. Elegant. Just transferring the images from the camera to the phone is not the only thing you can do with Wi-Fi. You can even control the camera with your phone with the app. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm just basically just connecting the camera and the app. And now I can see on my phone what my camera sees. And I can simply take a picture like this. Yeah, I got a picture of Buzz. So you can get really close like this, and then it is nicer to have a tiny bit wider of an angle. And the good thing about the X100T is that the same wide and teleconverters that fit on the older models, they still fit, so they're completely compatible. So I'm going to switch to the wide converter lens to have a bit of a wider field of view. Simply, not that simply, unscrew this ring and put on the conversion lens. And now it is like a 27mm equivalent lens. There we are, we have Wi-Fi. So let's go and take some more pictures. So people that don't really even know that you're taking their picture, you can take their picture right now, just on your phone. One of the nice things about the Fujifilm cameras is that they produce really nice JPEGs, and you have a lot of control about the look of the file that you want to make. When I shoot on the streets, I often shoot RAW plus JPEG, but generally I end up using the JPEGs because they're so good and they need very, very little post-processing. If I need more information, I can still use the RAW file, of course. Now, I use a lot of black and white, a pretty hard black and white on the Fujifilms, make it very contrasty. But now we also have the classic chrome film simulation. And the classic chrome, in my opinion, it's a bit of a Kodachrome feel. It has slightly desaturated colors with not so much magentas and reds in it, more like yellowish, so it gives this nice nice feel to the images, and it's a film simulation that I've been using a lot lately, and I'm sure that I will be using a lot in the future. But one of the limitations of the previous X100T was that you could only use a shutter speed up to 1/4000th of a second. Most of the time that's plenty enough, but if you want to shoot in this kind of light with a shallow depth of field at f2, you need a higher shutter speed. And now we have an electronic shutter in this camera. There's still the leaf shutter that we had before, but we can also have electronic shutter and achieve shutter speeds that are even much higher. So I can take a picture of you right now, and my shutter speed is over 1/10,000th of a second, and it's still going to be perfectly exposed. Let me take one more. There you go, thank you very much. When the original X100 came out, the photography world was taken by surprise by this hybrid viewfinder where you could have an optical viewfinder and an electronic viewfinder with the flip of a switch. And it's still here, and it's become even better. Before, if you used the optical viewfinder, you had no idea about your exposure and about your focus. Now we have an option, we have three options actually. We have the classic optical viewfinder, we have the classic electronic viewfinder, and we have some kind of a hybrid viewfinder where we have mostly the optical viewfinder, and at the same time in the bottom right corner we have a little LCD where we can see what our focus point sees, we get the right exposure, and we can see if it is sharp. So to me that is a big improvement, definitely if you're working with manual focus, but also it's just, before I had a hard time trusting that my shots would be in focus, and now I can see before I take the picture that it is in focus and well exposed. Another really nice improvement is the fact that we can now link the spot metering with our focus point. Usually before we had the problem that we had always the spot metering in the center of the image while our focus point could have been somewhere else. Now we can lock it, so if we change the focus point, the exposure is also measured on that point, which is, I think, brilliant. So right now I'm going to try to do some street portraits, and for that I need people who have time for a little street portrait. Only a couple of minutes maybe, but that's all I need. So the most important thing is to find a place where people are hanging around, where they have time. So if you have a street like this where people are just passing by, that's not a good place. So we want a place where people are chatting, hanging around, talking. That's where we're going to look for a couple of portrait victims. So we are going to do, or try to do, some portraits, some street portraits to round up this review. For that I'm going to use a slightly longer focal length, and I'm going to use the teleconverter for the X100 series cameras. It gives a bit of a better point of view in my opinion. It is equivalent to a 50mm lens, which has always been one of my favorite lenses anyway. So let's see if I can find it. So it basically just screws on, and now the 23mm has become a bit longer. I will. Kom maar mee. Jij mag langs de andere kant gaan staan. En jullie mogen dan wat dichter schuiven. Zijn het een coole opa en een oma?
Ja.
Ah, wel, maar dan moeten we een beetje cool staan ook. Hè? En nu ga ik een beetje achteruit, niet gaan lopen. Voilà. En nu ga ik die gewoon direct voor u afprinten en meegeven. Jij mag dat eruit pakken. En nu moet je eventjes wachten. Hebben jullie tijd om eventjes mee tot daar te wandelen? Ja. Ja? Oké, dan gaan we dat doen, hè.
Ja. Moet ook met de foto vasthouden, dat je hem zeker niet aan het vallen.
Want daar gaan we een mooier licht hebben. Evelien, we gaan eens kijken, hè. Ontspannen, hè. Maar goed ontspannen, hè. Niet zo... Weet je wat je een keer moet doen? Zo. Voilà, nu is dat over. Maar we moeten niet lachen, hè. Ja, maar. Super, dan gaan we die afprinten, hè. Amai. Nee. Marjolein, wat gaan wij een keer doen? Eigenlijk, hè, zit eens een klein stapje naar daar. Zo, en nu een klein stapje achteruit. Zo, en nu je mag je voetjes een klein beetje uit elkaar zetten. En zo. Stoer. Oh nee, je moet die tanden toch kunnen zien en kun je later zeggen, toen had ik nog niet zoveel tanden. En uw hoofd een beetje rechter, nu zo naar beneden. Ja, voilà. Hoeveel tanden heb je al uit?
4.
4 al. Kun je nog knabbelen? En hoeveel jaar ben jij?
6.
6. Mijn dochter is er net 7. En die heeft nog meer tanden uit. Die is precies een vampier. Die denkt altijd van... En die noemt Noah. En dan zeg ik, Noah, niet mijn nek buiten, hè. Spannend, spannend. Ja, nu. En nu opa en oma, hè. Stel eens, we moeten die doen lachen, want die gaan niet willen lachen, hè. En stel eens, als ik een foto neem, jullie gaan achter mij staan. En als ik het woordje olifant zeg, dan beginnen jullie gekke bekken te trekken en gekke dingen te doen, zodanig dat ze beginnen lachen. Deal? Afgesproken? Kom maar. Ja, oké. Voilà. Ja, jullie komen hier staan. Hè. Voor het licht moeten jullie een beetje hier komen staan. Ja. Maar we moeten wel een beetje natuurlijk lachen. Eigenlijk moeten lachen gelijk een olifant.
Ja. Goed. Ja. Goed.
Goed naar hier kijken. Voilà, hè. Nu gaan we die ook afprinten. En dan moeten we zien dat die printer niet ontploft.
Gaat niet lukken.
Ja, ze komen eraan.
Ja, ze komen eraan.
Dag, tot de volgende keer. Walking up to a stranger and asking them for a portrait, to pose for a portrait, is something that I find very, very hard. I don't know why. I'm very shy when it comes to that. But one trick that I found that usually works is when they're taking pictures of each other is to go up to them and offer them help, and then from there try to get some pictures like with this. These were grandparents with their grandchildren. Sorry if it was in Dutch, but that's the only language we have in common. So, and you know, it's always very interesting how happy people are with a picture of themselves. First, they are a bit reluctant, but when you give them something, it's really nice. And the little Instax printer, this is the Instax Share SP1 printer, and it really prints on genuine Instax film. It's such a gift. It's not the greatest quality prints, it's not fine art prints. They're often a bit overexposed and things like that. But it's something real that you can give to someone. And it's amazing, young people, old people, people my age, we all love an Instax. Just a little print, and it brings people together, get people to talk. So it is, I always have it with me. If I have a camera bag with me, the Instax printer is in it. And the nice thing about the X100T is that you can print straight from the camera to the Instax films. You don't have to pass from the phone through your phone or anything. Just over Wi-Fi, print straight out of the printer. And it's such a great way to meet people and get to talk to people and make people happy. So this was my review of the new Fujifilm X100T. If you compare it to the old X100S, there may be not dramatic improvement, but there are definitely a lot of small things that make working with this camera easier and gives you more options. There's the minus and plus 3 stops of exposure compensation, which is a very handy thing to have. To me, very important is the Wi-Fi capabilities, which allows you to transfer images to your phone to use on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. You can control the camera with your phone. And then there's the direct printing to the Instax Printer, which is a very, very big advantage in my opinion. There's other things like the viewfinder, that's really nice, the classic chrome, the electronic shutter, all small improvements, but if you combine them all together, I would personally upgrade from the S to the T. Now, for most people, the X100S will still be fine. Do you need to upgrade? Well, that depends on what you need, what you want, and your budget. But for me, looking at the fact that it is my always with me camera, the Wi-Fi and some other of the things make it a worthwhile upgrade. So kudos to Fujifilm for listening to what the photographer said, because a lot of these improvements, they come out of feedback from photographers, from you, from me, from many other photographers. And that's the really great thing, is that this camera keeps maturing, keeps growing, and it grows with the market, it grows with what photographers these days need. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I hope to see you soon again. Thanks for watching. I'm a poor, lonesome photographer, and I'm a long, long way from